Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who thinks every membership strategy should start with understanding the fan journey, Sean Callanan.
G'day, I'm Sean Callanan and welcome to episode 419 of Sports Geek. In this week's episode, I chat with Mitchell Dale. He's the Executive GM, Strategy and Growth for the Greater Western Sydney Giants. Thank you very much for listening. You might be doing so on your favourite podcast platform. Mine remains Pocket Casts. I checked earlier today, 171 reviews via Pocket Cast, but also I think Pocket Cast is doing some great aggregation. If you haven't left a review, I'd really appreciate one, whether it is on Pocket Casts or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I do appreciate and read every single review that comes through. And you can also share a podcast with your colleagues. I find that word of mouth is the best way to get the podcast out there. That's how I actually recommend podcasts myself, listening to different podcasts. You can find them all at sportsgeekhq.com/episode number. In this case, it's episode 419. You can also find these podcasts now on our YouTube channel. Go look up Sports Geek on YouTube and you can see the interviews on our YouTube channel. And as always, I love working with podcast listeners. If there is a way that I can help you, what I want to see is great digital activations, teams getting to do cool things, building revenue via digital. They're the things that I love doing, and I love helping teams reach those goals. One of the other things that we've been doing lately, and a lot of, is helping teams assess and understand how they can use AI, whether that be a keynote and a workshop for your executive or your board level, or some ideation and looking at your processes and how you can improve what you do in AI. So if you're interested and want to talk about how you can leverage AI or would like to book me as a speaker, please just reach out. You can get me on the social media at Sean Callanan or via email. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com is how you can find me. But now let's get stuck in to my chat with Mitch Dale from the GWS Giants. Very happy to welcome Mitchell Dale. He's the Executive General Manager of Strategy and Growth at the Greater Western Sydney Giants, who play in the AFL. Mitch, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem at all. I always start by asking people how they got their break and got their first gig in sports. What about yourself?
Well, technically, I'm probably still in my first gig in sport currently, 8 years in here at the Giants now. It was my first role in sport. I'd not come from a sport background or a sports marketing background. I'd very much come from a marketing and comms and agency life prior to my time at the Giants. So, yeah, very much on my first gig now.
And, you know, for those who don't know, if they're listening outside of Australia, Giants are the second AFL team in Sydney, based in Greater Western Sydney. You're obviously from Sydney. Were you someone that was caught up in understanding AFL or followed AFL when you came to the Giants?
No, absolutely not. It was very foreign to me. I saw my first full game of AFL when I started at the club. I'd grown up, as you said, in Western Sydney. Came from a rugby union following fan background. AFL was very much a new proposition to me, and it was a very shared experience, I think, with the majority of our audience.
So that's effectively, yeah, you were effectively in one of your initial audience segments to go, how do I bring on board new fans? Very much GWS is very much there to capture that big Greater Western Sydney market. So was that sort of your first port of call to go, how could I be drawn into the AFL fold and into the Giant story?
Yeah, absolutely. From a marketing background, I mean, the understanding of empathy for your customer is huge, and understanding the barriers and the different experience you have to approaching a product, and in our case, it is the AFL, but approaching a product from a standpoint of empathy and understanding what they're going through. The game is a very different prospect to what Sydney was very much used to, an 80-minute rectangular game is very common up here, and AFL experience is foreign. So I saw it as a great strength of mine, being able to understand and go on that journey, which was very, very similar to growing new fans.
And in that, we've spoken to a bunch of different people who are in those startup phases of startup franchises, whether it's coming into a new market or starting from scratch. And in the GWS, it was both. Digital marketing was seen as a means to, I guess, start expanding that story, starting those customer funnels, starting to bring people in. What were some of your, I guess, first steps in the role when you sort of got there to say, how do I start recruiting new fans to the Giants?
Yeah, absolutely. That first initial understanding point of understanding your place in the market and the position and the brand awareness and the current interactions that our fan base were having with the product and with the game was really, really important. For me, I was able to go on that journey of understanding the product at the same time, but then also understanding what our current, data points were. What did our audience look like? What was the demographics that we were trying to connect in with, and what were the quick wins were really important. Also understanding the digital landscape within the AFL and within the club at the time was really important. I remember one of the very first things I did when I got here was get a big sheet of A3 paper, draw out all of the platforms, understand how our fans were interacting with different pieces of our digital ecosystem and what the purpose was around all of those different platforms. And I think having that context really drove some of the initial wins that we had initially, but it also highlighted some of the gaps or quick wins that we could kind of get off the board early days.
And so coming in initially as a digital marketing specialist, your role, I guess, evolved as you started to dive into the data, understand more about the audiences. Your role changed to marketing, audience, and insights. Were you really, because normally you start with what data do we have, then what does that data tell us, and then what's next? Like, was that sort of that process of building upon what you had and then running campaigns, seeing what was working that sort of made that role expand?
Absolutely. And then also the ways that we could kind of apply the approach that I took to digital marketing space to broader parts of the business. I've tried to be informed as much as I can from the data and what we have available and try and make informed business decisions off the back of that. And whether that is, from a marketing acquisition, getting more bums on seats, getting more leads into your database, or whether it's down to, selling more scarves, more beanies on match day, I've really tried to gather the insights and inform that decision making, and kind of with that change in my role has come about. I think one of the other great things that I've certainly experienced up here is a willingness to collaborate and work with people. I've certainly liked to connect the dots from a fan perspective and understand what a fan's going through and whether they're, buying tickets on Ticketmaster or buying a piece of merchandise from our shop, but understanding how all of those platforms work together and how they can efficiently work together. And I think that's put me in a great point now in my career where I am able to connect a lot of the dots across our broader business.
And so, in your multiple roles, you've been in consumer business acquisition, now in strategy and growth. Has it always been with that, I guess, that fan point of view and I guess growing the pool and growing that fan base for the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, my current role now focuses primarily on three key areas, which is the overall strategy and making sure that, we're achieving our medium and long-term vision for what we hope the club will be. Growth, unlocking growth in sort of all sectors of the business, whether that be, assisting with our consumer team in getting more bums on seats, or whether it's, new business streams or new revenue streams, or more effective relationships as well. And then the third part's technology and insight. So utilising the great sources of data that we have, not just our own data, but, market data around what our fan demographics look like, what our regions look like, and applying that to a business sense as well.
And you sort of spoke about different things like, a lot of the times the AFL is really, really focused on membership and, membership tallies and who is a member. And it's, it's a real strength of the AFL. I think, the last reports are over a million Australians hold an AFL club membership, but it's more than membership. It's, someone just might buy a scarf. Someone might just be following you from a social point of view, or they might go to an activation, or they might go to something with your partner. How do you sort of juggle, I guess, some of those different priorities?
Absolutely. And I think you speak to the great scale of the AFL and the great audience opportunity that is available. For us as the Giants, we are a generational play. We're one that's going to tap into one of the greatest sports marketing opportunities or just general audience opportunities in Western Sydney now. There's currently more people living in the west of Sydney than there are in the east of Sydney. So being here is a real strategic priority for growing of our game and growing our club. What we like to consider as a business is how we interact with customers at all stages of the funnel. In some respects, for us as a new proposition, it's just as important, making sure people are viewing our content online or watching our games in the pub as it is attending, games. We definitely, keep track of all of those really key lower down funnel KPIs and metrics, bums on seats, revenue and all of those sorts of things. But given our life cycle, it is just as important to grow those top of the funnel pieces as it is, continuing on that fan journey and building that avidity.
And that's, I guess, that generational piece. So again, you don't have the history and the generation upon generation, the dad that just tells the son or the daughter that, this is your team. You're starting from scratch with a lot of these and different groups, different either, multicultural groups or just people in the city or just, locking on, getting a kid when they're 5, 6, 7 and knowing that if you get them right, then they will be a fan for life. I mean, your role and in that growth and strategy pieces is a lot different to those, clubs that have that generational pool of fans that have been, multi-generations.
Absolutely. Yeah. The conversation, in other markets, you can go to your local cafe and they'll know every player and everyone's got a team. And that's certainly not the case yet in Western Sydney. We certainly hope that it'll grow to a stage that it is. For us, it's very much about engaging that new audience. So a lot of the work that our community team do, our consumer team, our media team do can sometimes be about, we're part of the AFL. This is what AFL is and we're the club for you. And it can be those introductory elements that are just as important. So when we start to look about, the scale of our market and the growth opportunity, we do have to put a lot of time and effort into understanding what that growth looks like and what that market looks like. Because they are new to our ecosystem. They're new to our, in many respects, they're new to our country at the same time, right? So it changes the way that you go about things.
And from having a lot of interface over your time, with the consumer team, like I said, from a membership and a ticketing point of view, but then also, retail, you've got a, vibrant brand with the orange and the charcoal in sort of working different ways, whether it be different jerseys or different like retail activations. How important has that been in the journey? And then do you still get a little pep in your step when you're walking through Sydney and seeing someone with a hat or a scarf or a t-shirt activation that you ideated on 6 to 12 months ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always exciting to see fans in the wild. I mean, we get the great benefit of being able to interact with our fans at home games and see that experience. But to see people love our brand and love our, apparel and those sorts of things and wear them proudly, in their day-to-day life is really important. We've made some strategic decisions over the last, certainly 5-10 years around how do we, integrate our brand into lifestyle and how do we make it something that's aspirational, but also something that's a little bit different and cuts through. And I think our Never Surrender jumper is a great reflection of that. Retail and apparel is probably the most visual execution of your brand. So it's really important that it reflects the values and what you're putting forward in your core messaging. And I think the other great part about our club is that we've often said we're unencumbered by history. So what it allows us to do is to try things differently and try and roll out different executions. And even, that can be as micro as what do our EDM comms look like or, changing all of our, Guernsey designs year in, year out. It can give us a platform to challenge and to grow in a different way.
And because you're in that role of, setting the strategy and growth, and you're at a club that is still on a growth trajectory and looking at that long term, how do you have how do you report your metrics and what success looks like for, year on year? Because you've still got to, fill cheeks on the seats and get certain number through the door, but you also got to say, well, this campaign or this activation or this initiative is a longer term play and it will pay off later. How do you balance that? But also, how do you report that, hey, we are having success?
Yeah, I think it's a strong balance that you have to strike there, because there's certainly, there's short-term KPIs and there's short-term metrics that you really need to deliver to ensure that you are still growing the club. But it's about having one eye on, what does our presence across Western Sydney look like? What does our growth trajectory through the ACT and Southern New South Wales look like at the same time? And many of these things may not have short-term return, but they'll have long-term gains. I think one of the great things that I heard the other week is, if you think about it now in terms of our audience, the 5-year-old that was living in Parramatta when the club started playing in the AFL is only now in charge of their money and is only just now considered a young person wanting to attend games for himself. So we're sort of hitting now that first generation of people in our region that have grown up with the Giants being here. So it is always about, making sure you deliver on those short-term metrics, but having one eye on the future is very important as well.
And I often talk, about that fan escalator. You're sort of either using social, using, community events, and slowly but surely they become, closer to the club. And hopefully they get to that point. They go, here you go, Mitch, here's my credit card. Just keep using it every year. And sort of that's the pinnacle that, that you work in the consumer business. Do you have some of those milestones to sort of say, I know where that fan is now and, we want to keep nurturing them along?
Absolutely. That life cycle piece is critically important for us to keep monitoring and understanding that, the person that may attend their first game on a low cost ticket may eventually turn into a membership. So we've spent a lot of time utilizing not only our digital strategy and things like our marketing tools to ensure that we're encouraging that future expenditure and that greater avidity, but it's also about cultivating those really core fans for us that are going to become our advocates and bring people along at the same time. So we're monitoring kind of all levels where we can across that fan experience and across that life cycle.
And is there a little bit of, difference in the market, because you have got, such a big market there, like you said, more people living closer to your stadium and in the Western Sydney than anywhere else, that, normally the model is, let's get everyone to be signing up and coming to every single home game. You've got a bigger market, whereas you might just want that mix of, I want people to come to a couple of games, whether it be a mini game membership or buying some singles, and sort of at least expanding the amount of people that have gone to a game for the year. Is that sort of a bit of a shift or a different strategy than, we've got that one stadium, we want to fill it out and that's how it is, because you sort of want that wide catchment area?
Absolutely. Our consumer team, and in particular our membership and ticketing team, do a great job now of servicing all of those different levels, whether it's via our groups program where we're encouraging people to come and attend with all of their friends for their very first game, or whether it is selling, your full season memberships. There's a product or a touch point that services everyone along that customer journey. And there's also content and experiences that service that as well. So it's one of the strengths, I believe, of our business and of our sport, of our club, that we're able to create something that attracts people at every level of their life cycle with us. And whether you're attending our first game or whether you're attending your 11th for the season, we've got an experience tailored to deliver that to what you want.
And then one of the things that does get a lot of press and a lot of online buzz is, I guess, the strategy and the means that the Giants do on social media. It's, a bit of humour, a bit of left field, sometimes even a bit of trolling. How did that sort of, develop and sort of give, the Giants a bit more of a persona and buzz online?
Yeah, I would love to claim credit for that, but I absolutely cannot. Our media team do an incredible job of being that real life execution of what our brand is. We don't pull any punches on social, as many have seen, but we're also a very strong reflection of what our brand is. We want to be a club like no other, and that definitely means that you sometimes have to challenge what we're doing, and you have to do things differently. And the cut through that the team has been able to deliver has been exceptional. And it is a very real experience of our brand and a really strong reflection of what the Giants are. And I mean, we are and have been that entertainment proposition since very early days. We needed something different to cut through in this market. And that's just one part of what our overall strategy is for growth.
I mean, that's the thing. You're sort of saying in market, you've got rivals in market that are in the same sport. Sydney Swans have been in the Sydney market for much longer, but then you've got rivals and other sports in market. How do you tackle that and sort of keep the Giants in the conversation in the Sydney market? Because it's just as much as Melbourne, it's a really cluttered and competitive sports market.
Yeah, Sydney is a very competitive market. And I mean, in some respects, we're competing for the same eyeballs, but in many respects, we're not. We're quite complementary to a lot of the other teams. And I think that's shown with a lot of the relationships that we've had with particularly our closest neighbours in the sporting landscape, and the work that teams have done to cross-promote and to connect with other sporting teams within our precinct has been really valuable. The bit up in that we probably don't acknowledge enough in Sydney and in Western Sydney is that we're not necessarily competing with those opportunities all the time, or those sports clubs for that eyeballs. We're competing for time, we're competing for avidity, and in Sydney you've got some great options. You can go to the beach, you can go to the movies. In some respects, you're almost competing with Netflix for time, right? So we have to carve out our connection point and know what our key proposition is to engage that audience, to make sure that they're going to have a great time and enjoy the great footy that is the Giants.
And so does that then come back to, I guess those different offerings that you might have, whether they be the events you do, the pure ticketing product, and I guess having that flexibility you sort of discussed of having different ticketing products because you've got a different fan base, things like buying 10 tickets and being able to spread them with all your mates at the one match, and those kind of things are things where you've sort of looked at the data and said, well, these are the things that we can try in this market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it extends even beyond that consumer space as well. It extends into the work that our incredible community team do, and the way that they're able to get our brand front and center with new audiences via a football adjacent product. It's also partnering in with the great teams at AFL New South Wales, ACT, and the AFL on how to grow the game more broadly in our market.
Well, that's the other thing that that I wanted to sort of touch on, that ever since you've been in the role, you've not only been selling the Giants, but you've also been selling the game and explaining the game and telling people what the game is and what the game offers. Does that remain, I guess, a core tenet and the thing that you have to keep doing in the market? Because, like you said, it is generational, and if the kid likes the Giants, wants to come, but you've still got to do the education piece so the mum and dad know what they're coming. Is like that a key piece of like what you need to do when you are reaching out to new fans?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, the changing face of Western Sydney and even to some extent down into ACT and Southern New South Wales is that there's so many new people that are coming into our community and into our region that education piece does remain top of mind. And it is something that we have to do in New South Wales generally. And AFL is not the priority sport up here in terms of our market. NRL and many other sports have done a fantastic job to integrate into the community. So for the short term, absolutely, we do need to educate on what the AFL is and showcase that we are, the team for them. And we hope to show that we reflect the community that we're in.
Absolutely. Then the other thing from, when you're in that strategy role, and a lot of the time that is 30,000 foot view, how do you get, I guess, feedback and the right feedback from different departments to sort of know how things are going from an execution point of view, like you're the boots on the ground?
Yeah, so we one of the great experiences that I've certainly had at the Giants is the a great collaboration that we have across the executive team and all parts of the business. Because we are a growth team and we're trying to grow in this market, it forces collaboration to a level that is really productive. We rely on teams to deliver certain things, to deliver, whether it's a digital campaign or whether it's a partnership. So that method and that collaboration is really key to the success. And that connectedness as well around our data and insights and the implications that it can have, shifts in, viewership numbers or attendance can mean a difference in what a partnership value looks like, or, where our community team is based for the week is just as important as where our ticket sales are at. So it's also about relying on the outputs of the team and making sure that we're communicating regularly. But as part of my role in strategy, I do act as that connector internally and try to look at that, as you said, that overarching view and see where there are opportunities to connect in or where there's opportunities for progress across all of the teams.
And so it effectively is that internal consultant, whether it's working with the commercial team or helping the consumer team with what they want to do in ticketing, or helping the comms team understanding the reach and the impact of certain pieces. That's sort of where your role sort of fits.
Yeah, absolutely. It is that overall connector position. And that, as you said, an internal consultant. We've got some incredibly talented people at the Giants, and it's not my role to tell them how to do their role or how to do that better. It's about connecting the dots and seeing the opportunities more broadly across the club. So internal consultant is absolutely the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I think when I was talking to Jim Caruso, he talked about it being an entrepreneur, like someone that's coming up with ideas, but internally for the org on what you can do. And I'm sure that's something you're doing when, you're seeing, one department over here, one department over there, and you're connecting, and there is either a process or a tool or a system that can actually help solve some of those problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've made some strong decisions over, my time at the Giants to use data and insights to really inform a lot of our business decisions. And being in my role and being able to have a direct relationship with, the tools and oversight over how the tools get rolled out means that it does make that a lot more efficient, but it does give me that insight into how a lot of their teams work, what are their operational headaches, what are their wins, and maybe where we can collaborate better across the club.
And so, if you think back to your first couple of days when you were there eight years ago to now, what do you know about the Giants fans now that, excites you for the next 5 years?
Oh, so it's light and day compared to when I joined. When I joined the Giants, we didn't have marketing automation. We didn't have a fully enterprise level CRM solution, which wasn't out of step with the broader AFL industry at the time, but we were very much getting prepared to make those changes and to grow, and then to now, where we do have a fantastic data warehouse solution. We've got an incredible CRM solution that's connecting across all of our teams almost on the business side. We've got a real understanding of our analytics and what our content streams look like, that we are truly able to understand what works and what connects with our fans. We're also, constantly paying attention to ABS data and what migration patterns look like, and connecting in with councils, which allows us to understand what's next for our region. So it's not just about understanding what our current fans look like. Our teams do an incredible job servicing our fans and making sure that they are front and center of everything that we do. But it's also about where are we scoping the next fan, and what are the insights that we currently have that will allow us to unlock further growth.
Absolutely. And so the next 5 years, if you're looking ahead, where do you see, I guess, whether it's your position or how your position evolves over the next 5 years, and like what does growth look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be that level that we're going to be assessed on those short term goals. Like we said, we would, firmly focused on growing attendances, growing membership, growing those more traditional AFL KPIs. But then there's also that broader audience development piece and growing the more eyeballs that we're able to connect with. What we hope for in the next 5 years is, continue the great run of success that we've had from a football perspective, but also continue the great run of success that we've had from a business growth perspective. We've matured as a business where we're certainly accelerating a lot of the work that we've done, and staying on that same trajectory is really important to us. So continuing more, and then I guess more from my role. I think we've touched on it's been a journey for me. I've had lots of different roles within the club and had the ability to connect in with a lot of different teams. So for me, my role over the next 5 years is to continue doing more of what I'm doing, to continue learning. Every day is very much different, and you learn something new every day. So being able to learn more and progress our club strategy more is certainly at the heart of what we see in the next 5 years.
Absolutely. And then from a tech stack and digital point of view, sort of said, early days it was moving from Excel spreadsheets and data and those kind of things to full CRMs and marketing automation and the like. Is there any tech and any trends you want to sort of tap into over in the near future?
We'd be silly not to say AI is a key focus for us, and certainly something that we're exploring. And it's not necessarily, the form that it's in today, content generation or, the different models that we're able to tap into. It's how do we use it to optimize our business operations, and how do we use it to grow the effectiveness of our business is probably a very key priority for us. It's not a new thing. It's certainly not something that's unique to our club, but it is certainly one that we're keen to tap into and utilise. And the team where we have utilised it, or where it's embedded within the tools that we certainly already use, it's been really effective. But we're ultimately keen to see where this, AI path takes us and where we can get more outputs out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that piece of, nearly every tool these days is now with AI included. It's like a new sticker that gets put on the next version. So there's ways to use it there, but then like you said, the ability to do things more efficiently, back of house operations, those kind of things, because sports clubs still run big operations with lean teams, so it is right for that. But yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how that develops over time, and which of the add-ons the integrations work, and then also which ones need to be customized and built out for you and your market and your fans. So it's going to be interesting, an exciting space.
Absolutely, and the way that it can improve the fan experience overall, I think, is going to be an exceptional way to progress the tools available, and making sure that the fan remains at the centre of our considerations for how we progress our digital strategy will be critical to that.
Absolutely. Well, Mitch, I really do appreciate you taking the time. I want to get to the Sports Geek Closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Look, for me, it would have been a Waratahs game at the SFS. Growing up in Sydney, my father was a big rugby union fan, and I don't think we ever left wanting to attend a game at the SFS. But probably the event that stands out to me most was the Bledisloe Cup, I think year 2000, 110,000 odd out here at what is now a core stadium. I think that one was the bit for me that resonated in what the power of sport holds and what it can do to impact lives.
Absolutely. You would have been to a lot of sports events in your time, and obviously a lot of Giants events, and the food game in stadiums across the world keeps going up. Do you have a favourite food or a favourite food memory at a sports event?
I think the favourite, I don't think you can go past stadium hot chips and tomato sauce, if I'm honest. even as basic as that sounds, I think it brings back a great sense of nostalgia, and it's certainly an experience I remember loving as a kid and even now.
What's the first app you open in the morning?
Probably it would either have to be the news app, where I've got all, my customized feeds from a publishers coming through, or Outlook. Of course, I get the Sports Geek newsletter sent to my email, but also a lot of the other, publicly available newsletters that share a lot of business information or sports business information are really important to me.
Terrific. Is there someone that you follow? It might be someone you follow on social media, or someone that you follow on LinkedIn, or an author that the podcast listeners should give a follow, and why?
Probably not a follow, but Jim Collins, Good to Great, is probably a great book. It's one that I've only just recently finished. It's a great read, but probably if you're looking for some light-hearted content, the Savannah Bananas is a great bit. I think what they've done to create entertainment out of baseball has been exceptional, and their journey's been really, really exciting to watch. And I think even as a thought starter for any of us that work in professional sports, they're an incredible showcase of what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact they put the fan at the centre and revolve everything around their event, and they've just gone from strength to strength and built this fandom for, what is a minor league. Like, effectively, they're the baseball Harlem Globetrotters is what they've effectively built out, but amazing to do it in this day and age. And, you can learn a lot from either what they're doing from an event experience, but then also, how they're telling the story on social, how they're leveraging their own players, how they're even just reporting and covering their own events. And not to mention, the amazing ticket sales when you keep seeing the latest, bananas game at a NFL field and those kind of things. They keep going from strength to strength. So it has been nominated before, but it's well worth another nomination. Lastly, and I only ask this both personally and professionally, so you can put your Giants hat on. But what social media platform is your MVP?
Look, it's a tough one to discern between the two. Ultimately, I think Instagram it's an incredible platform. It's got the power of storytelling, and it's got a great ability to create user-generated content. So I guess probably across the board, it would have to be Instagram. I'd certainly find myself consuming it way more than I probably should be, but it is definitely it's a real winner, and it connects with fans, and it also delivers the content that most of us are looking for.
Absolutely, and it is a multiple nomination. Mitch, really do appreciate you taking the time. Good to catch up again. I always ask people to say thank you and reach out if they want to reach out to the guests. What's the best place for them to reach out to you?
LinkedIn for sure.
Beautiful. Well, I'll put the links to all the GWS Giants socials, and as we said there, they're worth a follow just for the lulz, and also links to Mitch's LinkedIn. Mitch, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
How are you helping your team perform at a high level? At Sports Geek, we excel in developing under-resourced team over-deliver. Book a time to talk with Sean at sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.
Thanks again to Mitch Dale. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. As always, we'll put links to both Mitch, LinkedIn, the GWS Giants, and also, if you haven't heard, the GWS Giants theme song will be in the show notes. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/419. And if you do connect with Mitch after this episode, please tell him you listened to the episode and you enjoyed it. I really do love it when podcast listeners reach out to guests to tell them actually there are people listening to these podcasts. It's not a myth at all. Before I wrap up, a few things going on. Like I said in the opener, I've got a new AI keynote on how AI is affecting and how AI is improving, and the rise of AI in sports and how you can leverage it, looking at both the tools that are available, looking at some of the new opportunities, especially stuff that we've been doing in the automation space, looking at terms like vibe coding, but also integrations with tools that are currently absolutely doing great things leveraging AI tools. If that's something you're interested in, please reach out to me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. I'm really looking forward to continuing this discussion at SEAT. SEAT will be in Nashville this year. Go to seatconference.com and register. I'm really looking forward to it. Haven't been to Nashville in many, many years. For those of you who don't know, my dad was a teacher and actually spent a school year when I was a wee fellow back in grade 2 in a small town in Tennessee called Elizabethton. So I do have some history with Tennessee, but it's not. I don't have a lot of memories because it was a long, long time ago. But really looking forward to getting back to Nashville. If you're going to be in Nashville, and we have seen each other at SEAT, looking forward to. If you've listened to the podcast and never been to SEAT and we've never met, please reach out. Let me know. I just found out today, speaking to a podcast guest that is coming along which will be coming along down the track, that one of their staff members is going. And so looking forward to connecting with them at SEAT, because that's what SEAT is. It's a great way to connect with people in industry across venue technology, security, data, business intelligence, analytics, digital, ticketing, sponsorship. If your title is in those lists of keywords, you should definitely give it a look. Go to seatconference.com and register, and I'll see you in Nashville. But until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Thanks for listening to Sports Geek. We know you probably skip over the closing segment, but we'd really love a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. Don't forget, you can now watch interviews on the Sports Geek YouTube channel. All Sports Geek episodes are just a click away at sportsgeekhq.com.